Cyberpunk 2077 introduces us to a lot of characters in the City of Dreams, but since there's no happy endings in Night City, many of those we meet wind up leaving the story in a body bag just as quickly as they entered it. Characters die, sometimes by our own hand, sometimes by our negligence, and sometimes because it's a crucial fixed point in the storyline. But that's not always the case, much as it may first appear so. In fact, with so many people that can secretly survive, this video is going to be going over the main ones. So here's 12 characters you probably didn't know could survive in Cyberpunk 2077. Ayden Daniels is a name you may, to be fair, not even remember. He's an NCPD cop whom we can only meet in Reyes' car gigs and displays something of a disregard for Night City law. A trait which probably makes him one of the most morally good cops out there, prepared to stick his neck out for the people who actually need help by screwing the megacorps that bent the rules to suit themselves. After we steal enough cars off the street for Muammar, he'll be so impressed with our work as to rope us in on his big Robin Hood-esque heist gig. Growing up in Santo Domingo, both Reyes and Daniels' biggest fear was simply drinking the water. Arasaka had been dumping highly toxic waste into the supply for years, and anyone unlucky enough to drink from a broken water filter was unlikely to survive. Or they just get seriously ill, especially if they were children. So the plan is to clap a huge truck full of meds from Arasaka themselves, several million eddies worth, and redistribute them to the children of the district, the ones who got sick whilst Arasaka got rich. Now, realistically, V could just do this job solo, but for some reason, Reyes also got Daniels and his NCPD buddies some temporary jobs as dock workers. I suppose to hold back enemy reinforcements whilst we get away with the truck. And that's actually exactly how it goes down. We drive away with the medicine just as the reinforcements arrive, whilst Daniels and his friends make a noble sacrifice to save the next generation of sick kids. Though, it doesn't actually have to be this way. If we simply stop the truck at the port entrance, get out, and take down the reinforcements ourselves, Daniels will survive, though he won't be happy about it.
The hell are you gawking at? Why the fuck are you still here?
Here to help you out.
Me? Who gives a shit about me? The gear's there. They blocked the streets by now. Fuck, go!
Doing it this way, Daniels will indeed survive, but our delay will result in some of the gear getting damaged. We may have saved this guy, but off-screen it'll mean less medicine to go around. And, though there's no way of telling, it's very possible some children who now don't get the medicine will instead die.
Couldn't just leave the guy there.
You coulda, but you didn't. I get it. Daniels lives, some gear dies. Not everyone gets help. Choices, V.
With the choice here being to pursue the immediate good outcome by risking a worse one down the line. In either case, we'll still be gifted the absolute best car in the game come the end of the quest, the Herrera Outlaw Whaler, and if you want to know how I arrived at that conclusion, then check out my video ranking every vehicle in Cyberpunk 2077. Tom is a doll who works at Clouds, and a guy we'll first meet when we head there looking for Evelyn. He's pretty chill, considering we just barged into his booth and started asking a bunch of questions, and is also somewhat concerned with Evelyn's whereabouts, if a little naive to believe she'd gone all the way to a new clinic in Oslo. But Tom further shows his decency once again, a lot later on, when Judy puts together her team of revolutionaries. He's even brave enough to slot Judy's experimental martial arts implant and take a punch from us that should realistically have killed him if not for the immunity of QuickTime events.
What the?
Now, if Judy's plan goes according to, well, plan, then Tom and Roxanne will later fight their way through Clouds alone, overthrowing the Tiger Claws to establish the place as a doll collective. And things seem great for about a week, until one of the biggest gangs in Night City decide they aren't happy with establishments being taken from under their nose and send a whole bunch of tigers in to reclaim it. In this timeline, Tom, still with his implant upgrade, fights back, and this time isn't immune from dying. Judy will find this out over an email from Roxanne, and it'll later be her reason for crying in the bathroom during Pyramid Song. Fortunately though, there is a way to save Tom. See, back during Pisces, where V and Maiko confront the Tiger Claw bosses, Maiko will propose an entirely different plan, still to kill Hiromi Sato, the official leader of Clouds, though to then replace her as leader in a named capacity. She'll gain full autonomy of the place and retain the gang's protection in exchange for a steady flow of eddies. If we also support Maiko's plan, then Judy will initially be pissed, but eventually see that there's a lot more sense to it. Unfortunately, Maiko will be the only real winner of this outcome, but at least there's no Tiger Claw assaults, and Tom therefore survives. And reading Judy's emails in this timeline, we can even find one from Tom, explaining he doesn't feel guilty about those he killed in the assaults, but that things also really haven't changed. Maiko now treats the dolls like trash, their wages haven't gone up by an any, and things overall round off a little more bleak. Everyone survives, but as Johnny would tell it, you can't start a revolution without losing some people along the way. Since Cyberpunk is almost 5 years old around the time of this video's release, I imagine a large handful of you will be aware of this one by now, but there's still bound to be plenty of you who aren't yet. And I can't make a video on the characters you can save without mentioning the biggest example of this. In the quest Search and Destroy, Takemura kidnaps Hanako and takes her to an abandoned building. We then meet with her very briefly to say our piece before Yorinobu sends Arasaka forces to storm the building. The ground gives out from under us, we fall a few floors and wake up to Johnny telling us to rush the hell out of there. Though, much as it may seem so in the moment, that isn't something we need to do immediately. If you simply jump back up a couple floors or navigate your way through the crumbling building, it is possible to return to and rescue a pinned down Takemura. We'll then shoot our way out of the building together before V collapses from a relic malfunction.
We must go different ways. Alone we have a better chance.
Really? Think so?
Then go. Now.
I mean, surely he can see that we're struggling to walk. Talk about gratitude for saving his life. Now, this only really matters if you're planning to pursue the devil ending. We won't actually see Takemura again otherwise, apart from a few texts and credit voicemails, but in the event of pursuing the worst ending to the game, there is a very, very big difference. Should Takemura die, then his role will largely be replaced by Anders Hellman, who fills in gaps for narrative beats like our big decision at the end, but leaves us to fend for ourselves in combat. The same can be said about Oda, in fact, who will also help us, albeit more briefly during the devil ending, if we spare him as well. Now, there are certainly arguments for just letting Takemura die back in that building. If we don't take the devil ending after, then he will be very angry, telling us to rot in hell and implying that he's gonna commit seppuku. But fast forward 2 years to the Phantom Liberty ending, and we'll learn that Takemura attempted to retake Arasaka with Hanako anyway, without us. They failed, she died, and the Corp used him as a scapegoat for her murder.
I have been hiding for 2 years. My life is now the trash heap where I found you. I wish for you to know this. You are very strong medicine, V.
Sounds angry, I know, but it isn't. Inversely backhanded perhaps, but Takemura is almost thanking us here for opening his eyes, making him realize that the Corp was always going to toss him out in the trash the moment it became convenient, forcing him to live on as a wanted man, but one that now sees clearly. A better ending for him than dying back in that building? Maybe. But regardless, if you want the achievement for the devil ending, then Takemura also needs to still be alive during it, making that by far the most practical reason to save him. Now, look. One way or another, Kurt Hansen always dies during Phantom Liberty. If we side with Songbird, he'll be taken care of by Alex. You can loot his LMG and revolver by running back to his body in that event. Or, if we side with Reed, we'll have to defeat him ourselves in a boss battle, looting his LMG, revolver, and knife at the end. But actually, come the end of that fight, Hansen won't immediately die. He'll just kneel down, heavily injured, and waiting to be finished off. A bit like Adam Smasher, in fact. And if you choose to simply walk away, then you'll of course be leaving Hansen alive, at least for a short while longer. Since Hansen's death is a key factor triggering the quest to run this town though, he still needs to die for the story to move forward. So, in this timeline, a short while later, we'll receive a text from Mr. Hans, who explains that Hansen has now died whilst in hospital. This happened during a moment when all the hospital cameras malfunctioned and the security guard also went out for a smoke. Hans doesn't know who exactly ended Hansen, but he suspects it was the doing of either a competitor, ambitious underling, or an unhappy client. It would appear that Kurt didn't have as iron a grip on Dogtown as it seems. Now, it's not clear who exactly would have done this. Bennett, for one, seems too loyal, and Yargo too reserved. Yuri Bishkov is a possibility, but given he can die by our hand prior to this point, I don't think it can be him either. If you have any theories as to who had the means, motive, and opportunity to kill Hansen in this timeline, then please do comment them below. I think this is a really interesting and unique perspective we get on Dogtown's power dynamic, and all we've got to do is leave Hansen alive ever so slightly longer. For this next one, we're piling a few Maelstrom names together into one. These are all guys you probably were aware could survive in some sense, but possibly didn't know they could all survive together or what that means further down the line. The Act 1 quest, The Pickup, probably has one of the greatest numbers of branching outcomes for any of the main quests in the game. We've got Maelstrom fighting Militech, but also infighting amongst both the two factions at the same time, and any one of the key players can die. Now, I think siding with Meredith Stout is probably the most popular option, thanks to our little liaison later, though this does result in killing almost every other Maelstrom member, and the Militech mole Anthony Gilchrist getting his due. But if we go behind Meredith's back and subsequently trigger her death, the outcome for the rest of the characters is arguably much more interesting. Fighting through all foods alongside Dum Dum will ensure he survives the quest. Royce should do the same, but can be killed when in his mech suit later to obtain his Chaos Pistol, though if both survive, we'll meet them again far later at Totentanz, but only on one other condition. Down in a back room of all foods, we'll also discover Brick, Maelstrom's former leader, whom Royce overthrew and imprisoned in here as, I don't know, a display of power? Now, interestingly, if we also free Brick in this timeline, even though Royce and Dum Dum both survive, it seems that Brick still manages to regain control of Maelstrom. Because here's what happened to me when visiting Totentanz, having saved all three.
A lot's changed since Royce went, but not that much.
What happened to Royce?
Militech happened. Think you know why?
Lo and behold, Brick is now back in charge, with Royce and Dum Dum nowhere to be seen. I also picked up Dum Dum's revolver, Doom Doom, from the Dogtown Black Market a short while after this, so presumably he met a permanent end. By the hands of Militech, it sounds like. Or, more specifically, the hands of Anthony Gilchrist, who'll also have survived in this timeline. Gilchrist was the Maelstrom mole, as Meredith suspected, and it's actually possible, much later on, to learn why. On board the Ebonike, when we head there with Rogue, we can find an audio file between Anthony Gilchrist and Adam Smasher.
You can't blackmail the entire Militech board by kidnapping one.
I know. I'm blackmailing you. 24 hours.
Smasher and Maelstrom were threatening to kill a girl named Mallory if Gilchrist didn't do their bidding. And it seems perhaps that once Meredith cottoned on to what Gilchrist was doing, Smasher had this Mallory woman killed anyway, whose body we can find also on board the Ebonike. Regardless, for a time Gilchrist did Maelstrom's bidding, and perhaps after the All Foods incident, he ensured the now free Brick returned to power. After all, I mean, which Maelstrom leader would you rather work with? So whilst all four of these guys can immediately survive, it appears that freeing Brick eventually results in the deaths of Royce and Dum Dum anyway. Though personally, I tend to side with Meredith and free Brick, in which case we can instead find Gilchrist's body back down in the sewer where we held our initial meeting.
Who's that? Friend of yours?
Corpo Rat. Schemer. Had some dealings with him. Long past.
Tiny Mike is an Afterlife merc whom we'll rescue during a Watson gig for Regina, after which he'll technically become our friend, and every time we head to the Afterlife will beckon us over to sit down and talk. But Mike is actually the more sensible of a duo of brothers. The other, fittingly named Big Pete, a techie who's been working with the Wraiths out in the Badlands, and whom will instead be sent to kill during a gig for Dakota. You see, Big Pete's got big problems. He recently sold some faulty Militech cloaking to a group group of wraiths, which in turn caused their AV to crash not far from Poppy Farm. In fact, if you head over there, you can actually find the survivors of the wreckage still, who presumably put out the revenge hit on Big Pete. Either way, it's up to us to infiltrate his base, kill his outside guard of wraiths, and do away with his problematic existence in the Badlands. If we also read an upstairs laptop, we can gain additional correspondence between him and his brother Tiny Mike, in which Pete is literally begging him for money. If we head downstairs to confront the guy, pausing for a second will then result in Pete begging us for his life. He'll promise to match the pay of whatever we've been offered and leave Night City, never to return. But hang on, didn't we just read that he has no money? Surely therefore this can't be a legit deal. Well, turns out that by sparing Pete, he will stick to his word. And on top of that, having dealt with the problem regardless, Dakota will also still pay us anyway, netting double the fee for this gig. Presumably, Pete sold the 40 cloaking to the wraiths out of desperation, with that then being the money he used to pay us. Also, with Big Pete still alive by the end of the gig, next time we're at the afterlife, we can mention to Tiny Mike about meeting his brother. But if Pete didn't survive, then the topic is avoided entirely. Another could-be victim of a gig next. Jack Mausser is the target of Dino's city center inconvenient killer gig, and man, this guy is a piece of work. He did a gig for Dino where he was supposed to collect some shards from Zetatech, but he instead executed the entire convoy of corpos in spectacular fashion. I mean, honestly, what kind of merc just goes off the rails against a corp like that? Anyway, to escape the ire of Zetatech, Dino wants us to take out Mausser as a kind of I didn't even like that guy gesture. And, as usual, we're the ones sent in to pull the trigger. However, if we sneak through his club without getting detected, up into a maintenance hatch in the security room before dropping down into Mausser's private suite, it is possible to talk to the guy somewhat peacefully. And whilst incredibly hostile the whole time, he is surprisingly receptive to diplomacy and reason. If we explain that there's a bounty on his head and this problem isn't going to go away, he'll eventually accept the fact that he needs to leave Night City. And yes, that involves leaving behind his club and all of his physical assets, but they'd be worthless to him anyway if he was dead. And Mausser really doesn't even go that far. In fact, he heads right over to Dogtown, making contact with the once up-and-coming fixer of the place, Jason Foreman, who's able to procure him passage for a new life in the highly sought-after Longshore Stacks. And indeed, after completing this gig, if you head into the rooftops of the Stacks, then it is possible to find Jack now living it up there, though he's also busy enjoying a brain dance, so no actual further dialogue, sadly. Whilst Jack Mausser employed the services of Jason Foreman to smuggle him inside Dogtown, it wouldn't be long before Jason meets an untimely demise at the hands of a client who was looking to be smuggled out. Leon Rinder is, or was, a heavily chromed up Barghest super soldier whose hefty number of implants began to cause serious episodes of cyberpsychosis. In a recent one, a deranged Rinder went berserk before utterly obliterating Jason and his friends down at Longshore Stacks. V is subsequently hired by the victim's family members to track Rinder down and get revenge, which we eventually do. Track him down, that is, at least. Rinder is holed up in a scav den just over the wall in Pacifica, where he's become one of the few people, probably ever, to willingly sell off his own chrome to the scabs. He requested the services of Demir, the guy usually based out of Terra Cognita, whom we meet during Aaron's side quest, to extract the chrome and sell it for scratch. So, by the time we find him, Rinder is laying in recovery inside their den and being guarded by one of the toughest scavs ever. One, Yasha Ivanov, who'll actually become a boss fight for the gig. Though once all of that is finally out the way, we'll enter Rinder's room to find a man far, far different from the one who committed that massacre back in Dogtown. Not even able anymore to pick up a pistol in this state and entirely at our mercy. Except, here's the thing, Rinder has no recollection of any of the suffering he wrought.
I was there, someone tried to rip me off, but I didn't kill no one. I've got these blackouts, ain't always present. I'm sick, okay? Sounds like you know more than me.
See, the plan was, with Rinder becoming continually more sick, he was going to leave Barghest with money made from selling his chrome to the Scabs, with Jason to serve as the middleman putting him in touch with them. Except Jason apparently tried to rip Rinder off, and that's when the Blackout massacre happened. Now we're left with the choice of whether to go through with killing Rinder or not, and he will give us a small reason to spare his life in this moment. But if it isn't clear by now, Rinder is suffering from cyberpsychosis, or at least massively chromed up guy going full Blackout rage mode would heavily hint towards that being the case. But in order for V to come to that conclusion, you'll need to select the dialogue option, "Whatever I did, let me enlighten you," where we describe the exact crime scene Rinder left, and it's clear he doesn't have a clue what we're talking about. We'll then need to put a gun to Rinder's head, at which point he'll attempt to bribe us with the location of his stash. We can then lower our weapon to get said location, and still shoot him moments later, which honestly isn't a terrible thing to do. Or in this instance, we can call Regina. After all, during her cyberpsycho gigs, we've probably let worse people than this go on living. Only problem is that following his treatment, Rinder will feel some remorse for his actions, and will send a few eddies back to the stacks out of guilt. This will immediately make Brianna realize that Rinder is still alive, and we won't be welcomed back there with any warmth afterwards. So what do you think? Does Rinder deserve to live, or no? One guy that I'm pretty sure nobody would argue deserves to live though, is one that nonetheless can. Woodman is a guy that probably winds up dead in 99.9% of playthroughs, either in our first encounter with the guy, or later when he's served up on a silver platter. We'll first meet Woodman though, during Automatic Love when we head to Clouds looking for Evelyn, eventually sneaking into his back office where, with a little persuasion, he'll direct us to Finger's Ripperdoc Clinic, another piece of human trash whose death used to come at a heavy cost, but nowadays you can just fire away if you like. Back to Woodman though, and we can of course take the guy out right here in Clouds. Hell, I mean, if you fail to stealth your way through here, then you may very well have to. Afterwards, just gathering the information you need from his terminal. But we don't have a particularly big reason to end Woodman yet, and the two of us will likely part ways in peace this time. Later though, after finding Evelyn, after she dies, and after Judy probes her memories looking for the answers we need, she'll find something else too. Something relating directly to Woodman.
Did some more digging in her virtues, found Woodman.
He kept her. Had his way with her. The things he did. And once he got bored, he pawned her off. I had no idea that guy was such a monster. Saw him as your average tricksy sleazebag.
He puts on a convincing facade. I knew him, but I never thought him that sick in the brain.
Yeah, Woodman is far more of a piece of human trash than even he lets on. There's also a Tiger Claw casino in Little China where we can find an email from Woodman after he was chucked out of there. He wants his winnings, and if he doesn't get them, he's gonna murder the son of the casino owner whom he's already tracked down. Now, fortunately, a while later, during the quest X Factor, Maiko actually throws Judy a bone, telling us that Woodman will shortly be sent down to the maintenance level alone. There's now a plethora of reasons to go kill the guy, partly because he's trash, and partly just because Judy wants us to. And if we do go and confront him, then he makes the case for him dying even more clear.
Could have also broken her neck. Hung up her head like a chandelier till it started to rot. Instead, I took her to a ripper. Was due a little something in return. She should be grateful. And so should you.
Here's my token of gratitude.
And yes, taking this guy out with Erebus was a deliberate choice by me. May a fragment of his soul continue to suffer in perpetual torment beyond the Black Wall. But, so that you guys don't have to, here's what happens if we refuse to kill Woodman. And for starters, as a merc who is literally hired to kill people sometimes, V's excuse is interesting.
I don't want to kill him. Won't. Sorry, but you can't ask that of me. Self-defense, that's one thing. But execution? Judy, it's bad karma.
You're right. Sorry.
We will then get a bonus interaction in the elevator though, discussing some of Night City's most suggestive advertising.
I really don't understand what tits have to do with selling that garbage.
Can't say no to tits. Rest can go fuck itself.
I mean, as a creator of some successful YouTube thumbnails, no comment from me. Now, far as I can tell, we won't hear from or about Woodman again by pursuing this route. Maiko will refrain from mentioning him during Pisces, and hey, just maybe he was caught in the crossfire when the dolls attacked Clouds. But, far as we know, Woodman might still be able to get out of a playthrough alive. Who knows? Somebody definitely more deserving of surviving a full playthrough is the target of yet another gig and definitely scores a few points for the Nomad life path. Anna Hamill is one of the few cops in the NCPD who actually sets out to do, honest cop stuff and make things better for the citizens of NC. Unfortunately, her honest pursuit of truth wound up uncovering a trail of corruption that led all the way back to the very organization she's working for. You're probably familiar with the name Jotaro Shobo, the guy who procures illegally trafficked people and forces them into shooting some of the most screwed up XBDs imaginable. It's in fact one of the deepest underlying crime rings in NC, and I cover it all in my video titled The Disturbing Story of Cyberpunk 2077's Most Evil Villain. Now, Anna had discovered that the police department itself was covering up and sometimes even supplementing Jotaro's business, with even used cyberware of the victims then getting pawned off to street-level rippers like Fingers. Unfortunately, her colleagues in the police department didn't take kindly to the pursuit of justice against them, so they hired Regina to hire a merc to take Anna down. But Regina, being one of the more morally good fixers, hopes that we can just convince Anna to drop her investigation. And we sort of can, at least in the initial moments. If we tell Anna that this gig was commissioned by her buddies in the NCPD, she'll realize this city is well beyond saving.
Yeah. Know what? I'm not letting scumbags get me killed. Fuck them. Fuck this job. Fuck this city.
For Street Kids and Corpos, Anna in fact did let scumbags get her killed. She tracked down and killed the main two cops responsible for putting the hit out on her, and we can find one in some trash bags at this marketplace a few days later. Then she went and shot up the precinct, summarily resulting in her death, which was touted as just another case of cyberpsychosis. Once again, no happy endings in Night City, which is why we need a merc who comes from beyond the city itself. You see, Nomad V has an additional option, but to unlock it, we need to not tell Anna that the NCPD set her up. We need to entirely avoid lighting that fuse of rage, because we can then pitch another solution to Anna trying to fix the city alone.
If you're a woman of principle, this ain't your city. Be better to skip town, join a nomad clan. They're like you, believing in something more.
They wouldn't accept me.
They will. As a nomad myself, I know they need people like you. More than you know.
And believe it or not, Anna will then go and join up with our own Nomad family. She can then be found leaning against a truck at the Aldecaldo camp, keeping some children entertained, and feeling a sense of genuine purpose amongst the clan. She does miss Night City in a strange way, but let's be real, we know that all roads back there would have ended terribly for her. Aaron Waines is a Dogtown boxer whose former affiliation with the Animals left him entirely at their mercy when fighting in the ring. The gang used a scav Ripidoc, Demir, the same one that operated on Leon Rinder, to chip Aaron with an implant that can drop him to the floor at a moment's notice. Then, with Aaron's inherent boxing talent and the sheer number of eddies that can be won when gambling on the sports, Aaron became a cash cow for the Animals. All they had to do was tell him which fights to lose, and he knew that if he didn't, they could force him to anyway. So after God knows how long of this happening, Aaron finally wants out. He hires us to help storm the Scav Ripidocs, confront Demir, and get the chip removed. All is going well until Aaron lays down in the operating chair, and a short while after the operation is underway, a very non-animal looking member of the Animals arrives, threatening us to leave the situation be, that Aaron is their guy and he owes them. But by successfully resisting wielding the very strong simp energy, we can simply take down Angie, obtaining her iconic pistol Cheetah, and Aaron will finally be free. For approximately 2 days, maybe a week at most. He'll still lose his next fight, but it'll be fair and square for once, and sadly it'll also be his last. See, after arranging to meet with us and say thank you, Aaron will be cornered by yet more animals who'll exact a final revenge. Guy tried to get out of the game and paid for it with his life. Though fortunately there is one way that Aaron can actually truly escape here, and that's by us letting Angie know just who exactly she's dealing with. After all, starting Phantom Liberty to begin with requires us to fight through the GIM and defeat, amongst many others, Sasquatch, arguably the most powerful animal ever. And this response will clearly strike some fear into these guys.
One other way
you with me?
This. Aaron will take his sweet time coming to. Unless you want to end up like Sasquatch.
Didn't think he could afford a merc in your league. I was wrong. Swung above his weight.
And knowing that we're now backing Aaron's corner, the animals won't dare come near him, whether he throws the fight or not. If he tries his best, still losing sadly, then he'll move to Costa Rica for a fresh start. If not, if he still chooses to live in fear of the animals, then he'll stay in Dogtown and put his talents to a more wholesome use, training the children of this place to defend themselves and maybe one day become boxing champions of their own. One final potential rescue for this list is definitely one of the most costly in terms of game content, and is a guy that absolutely will not thank us for saving his life. No, in fairness, he'll never really know it. Bill Jablonsky was the husband of the late Caroline Jablonsky, one of the many victims of the now reformed Joshua Stevenson. You'll probably know Joshua, and if you want a more detailed breakdown of him as a character, then check out my video on the game's top 5 most disturbing quests. Just bear in mind, it's pre-Phantom Liberty that one, so no, somewhat damaged doesn't feature. Back to Jablonsky though, and he understandably thinks Joshua is getting off too light, going down as some religious martyr who'll probably be remembered as a hero by many. Bill will not permit that, and since the law has failed him, he's taking matters into his own hands. We're just there as a driver and protective muscle, giving chase at the moment Joshua's police escort drives past, pursuing them eventually to an underpass. The problem for Bill is that from the moment we arrive here, his fate is sealed. Bill will be one-shotted by Officer Vasquez, and Joshua will try, probably succeed, to bring us along on his little farewell tour. So just kill Vasquez before he can shoot, I hear you saying? Well, yeah, that isn't possible either. I mean, killing Joshua and Vasquez after the fact, sure, but Bill will never be alive to witness it. That is written. However, there is still a way, technically, to save him. See, if during the pursuit we fail to keep up, or get some police stars by doing something illegal, Jablonsky will throw us out of the vehicle.
Bastard's gone! Got away! Beat it! Get the fuck out! You're useless!
We may be useless, but Bill is still alive. And a short while later, he'll text to say he's left the city, what with that murderer at large, and he's not paying a penny to either us or Kako. We never meet Joshua, never head down the rest of that questline, and he presumably gets crucified all the same. It is certainly not a path I would recommend pursuing, but it is a way to keep alive another character you may not have realized could live. Now, whilst all of these characters we can potentially save offer exciting new prospects, perhaps new ways of playing that you weren't otherwise aware of, there is one more character who absolutely can survive regardless of the game ending we choose, with said survival potentially having huge ripples in future Cyberpunk media and games. But if you want to know just how V can survive every ending of Cyberpunk 2077, then you'll have to check out that video next. There is simply too much there that briefly going over it again in this video will not do it justice. But comment below any other characters you might have saved in subsequent playthroughs that you didn't realize could survive, as it's always great to hear more from you guys. Massive thank you as always to the patrons for going the extra mile in supporting Cyberpunk content, and thank you of course for watching. I'm Bram, and have a Nova day, my chooms.